Hello guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another video. We're going to be discussing the players today and why I think the players need to start taking responsibility for their own performances and stop blaming everybody else, including managers. It's happened far too often in recent history and it seems to be happening now with Carlo Ancelotti, and I want to discuss why this needs to stop and players need to start taking responsibility for their own poor performances like the one against Liverpool on Sunday. We're also going to talk about the massive fallout between Fabian Delph and the fans. Obviously, Fabian Delph has had leaked DMs messaging a fan, basically telling him, asking him could he do better than what he performed like on Sunday and calling him delusional as well and being quite patronising. So we're going to talk about that and we're going to talk about why it's important that us as fans now are pointing out that the players' performances just aren't good enough and that the players aren't given enough heart, because we were very, very quick to jump on Marco Silva when we started to get on the fact that his tactics maybe weren't spot on and that his substitutions were poor as well. But what we didn't take into consideration during those poor Marco Silva times and in those poor games is that there were also players that weren't, pulling their weight, that weren't putting in the performances that they should be doing, and that weren't at their very, very least trying 110% every single game, even if they were unsure of what they were doing or what they should be doing. So we're going to talk about that because I think that's been swept under the carpet for quite some time, and now obviously after the Merseyside derby defeat and that, obviously given that Carlo Ancelotti's only just come in and he's got, I think, the backing of pretty much every Evertonian, if not every Evertonian, we're starting to realise now as fans that maybe the players are just using excuses and maybe the players are just, not good enough or just not trying hard enough whatsoever. Players have already come out after the game, according to an article in The Athletic, and said that they did try their hardest in the second half and they actually blamed Carlo Ancelotti's tactics, which I think is actually quite shocking. And takes a lot of bollocks to come out and blame the tactics of a 3 times Champions League winning coach for the reason as to why you didn't beat a team in your local rivals or didn't try against your local rivals when their team was a team that hadn't played Premier League football at all and full of quite young players. I don't want to say kids because I don't want to patronise them and I've done that enough over the last 2 days, but full of young players. But anyway, before we get into any of the videos, I've got a couple of things I want to say just before we get into them. Owen Wilson, big hi to you. Your dad got in touch with me on Twitter and said that the both of you frequently watch the live streams from Sydney, Australia, of course, so you don't quite catch them when they're live, but you do get up and watch the replay. So a big thank you to you and your dad, obviously, for taking time out of your day to watch me. It must be absolutely annoying to have to get up all hours in the morning to watch Everton Football Club. It's annoying as it is watching us from Liverpool 10 minutes from the ground. It must be even more annoying getting up in Sydney, Australia and having to watch us, especially when we're putting in performances like we did on Sunday. So a big hello to you, Owen. I believe you're playing football as well for AC United, so good luck with that. And yeah, your dad said that you've got plans to come over at some point in the future, so if you do, hopefully you can get a ticket to the game, go to the game, and maybe we'll meet up as well for a little discussion beforehand. But yeah, big hello to you, thank you, and your father obviously for watching the live streams, and as well as the shout out to Owen, of course. I'm sure, so if you follow me on Twitter, I'm sure some of you may know, I tweeted out yesterday, I will be doing the Goodison Park sleep out, raising funds for Everton in the community, of course. The whole, the reason that we're doing the sleep out is to raise funds for young people aged between 18 and 23 who are on the risk or at risk of homelessness. If you don't know what the sleep out is, it's basically where the people that sign up go out to Goodison Park of a night and we basically stay the whole night at Goodison Park. The idea is to be in the freezing cold, in the uncomfortable settings at Goodison Park and spend the entire night there and have a feel of what it'd be like for those people that have to do that, day in, day out, constantly throughout their lives. So I've left a link in the description if you've got absolutely any spare change whatsoever, no matter the amount, how small, how large. I'll be greatly appreciated if you could donate it in the link in the description below. The sleep out is on the 6th of March. I will be vlogging it. I will be doing some videos as well whilst I'm there, so you can look forward to them. But yeah, I will be doing that. If you want to check the link out, read a little bit more about the sleep out and my story, it's in the link in the description below. But anyway, yeah, let's get into the big discussion. I was thinking about what I could talk about today. Obviously, off the back of Monday's live stream, we've done the live game review. It was very interesting. Obviously, we had a load of Liverpool fans taking the mick out of us, which we usually do. Nothing different there. But I thought, what can we talk about on Wednesday? What topics can we talk about? And as Everton usually do, it pretty much, it told itself, really, didn't it? Players are coming out and arguing with fans after the game. You've got players coming out and blaming the tactics of the manager. You've got players arguing with their own fans on social media. You've got fans turning up to the training ground. A lot of things have happened, a lot of negative things have happened in the last, 48 hours, and it'd be very, very easy for us to just sweep them under the carpet and not talk about them. But I think that's why there's been a lot of issues, to be honest with you, at Everton Football Club for quite some time, because we do enough of sweeping things under the carpet and not talking about it and just thinking, actually, you know what, that'll go away at some point. So it's important that we do talk about these issues. Obviously, we are massively disappointed on Sunday. The team didn't bother turning up whatsoever, especially in that second half. It was an absolutely dreadful performance. Obviously, I don't really want to talk too much about the game because we spoke about it in the instant match reaction. We spoke about it in the game review. But one thing I did notice after the game is that Seamus Coleman and Mason Holgate appeared to have some sort of argument, some sort of confrontation with a Liverpool fan. Now, it was said on social media that this Liverpool fan was very, very young. You don't actually see the Liverpool fan, so I'm not going to speculate. I'm not going to say he's a child or whatever, but you definitely see Seamus Coleman and Mason Holgate seemingly being unhappy with what was said by the certain fan, whether it be a child or whether it be an adult. Now, I'm going to assume, and it is just an assumption, that what was said wasn't anything too serious, because we haven't heard anything more about it. If it's anything derogatory or anything like that, I'm sure we'd have heard it on the news like we usually do when, horrible things are said at football matches. These people are made to pay, and rightly so, but nothing has really been said. So I'm assuming that, a Liverpool fan has, laughed at Mason Holgate or laughed at Seamus Coleman and called them shit or whatever. And that's why I said worse was probably said in the away end, and that's why I mentioned that in the live game review. But obviously there's a video now that's surfacing the internet, which is factual. It's there. It's true. And when I go into talking about, Fabian Delph's DM situation and the messages between him, I do just want to say that obviously the Echo are reporting that there's due to be an investigation by Everton between that. There has been a lot of fake messages that have been put on the internet since that. There's one occasion, like I mentioned at the start of the live stream, which I believe to be true, and I believe to be true for one particular reason, and that's because the lad literally videos his profile, screen records his profile, clicks into his DMs, and then you can see him press on Fabian Delph, and it would take a lot of editing and a lot of time to fake that, and I just would like to think that some people, I'd like to think that people don't have the energy to do that, and it's obviously the Echo reporting that that's under investigation, but there is a lot of fake DMs that people are claiming Fabian Delph saying that he's going to fight them and meet them outside places, and saying about playing next to certain players. They're not true, they're completely false. However, there is certain, there's a certain conversation that I believe to be true. However, still we don't know 100%. That's not being confirmed by the club. It's not being confirmed by the player himself. He hasn't come out. He hasn't apologised. But one thing that is definitely true, obviously, is the video between Mason Holgate and Seamus Coleman. As you can see clearly on the video, they're arguing. They're having some sort of disagreements, and I think that really, really frustrates me with this is that Seamus Coleman and Mason Holgate Seamus had like 60 minutes of a game. Mason had the full 90 minutes to go and show that type of frustration, to go and show that type of that fight and that willingness to show your emotion for the football club on the pitch, and they didn't. They were absolutely dreadful. They didn't stick a foot in. They didn't look like they wanted to be involved. They looked scared, and then they come off the pitch, and within 30 seconds, before they've even walked down the tunnel, they're arguing with opposition fans as if they've given their all on the pitch. They're saying, what are you saying? What are you saying that for? Blah, blah, blah. Don't go and give it the Billy Big Bollocks after the game if you've put in such an embarrassing performance. Walk down that tunnel with your head held in shame, and the only thing you should be standing up and saying is, listen, to the Everton fans, that performance was absolutely dreadful, and I apologise for going out and putting that type of performance in. Don't go out and argue with Liverpool fans when you've just embarrassed yourself on the pitch. You've just absolutely embarrassed yourself on the pitch. There's you see the video and you just think, okay, if they've gone out and they've given 110% and they've fought and they've battled and they've, they're on the ball, they've played well and they've given absolutely everything and the effort was there, and then they've come off the pitch and they've argued because they didn't like what a certain fan was saying, fair enough, but they absolutely shit out for the entire game. They didn't want to be there, they didn't look interested, they didn't look like they wanted to represent our football club. They very much looked like they were out there to get paid, and that was it. And then come out and then argue with fans once you've stepped up the pitch. It's very easy to argue with a fan that's 20 foot in the air on a seat when you know full well there's enough security and police around you that you're not going to get there. It's very easy to say, oh, well, what are you doing? You shouldn't be doing that. Blah, blah, blah. Who are you saying that to? Who are you saying this to? Why aren't you showing that type of anger? Why aren't you showing that type of fight on the pitch? Why? I just don't understand it. Another thing, obviously, is the article by The Athletic, which was which was published today. We'll talk more in depth about it. I briefly said it before. Basically, The Athletic have published an article stating that Duncan Ferguson, well, Carlo Ancelotti firstly was not happy with the performance on Sunday as expected, but Duncan Ferguson really wasn't happy with it either. Apparently he went into the away dressing room, he shut the door after himself, which I can only assume is so that outsiders didn't hear what he was saying, and he apparently tore a strip off pretty much every single Everton player in that dressing room for the level of performance that they put in, or the lack of level of performance, should I say, that they put in on Sunday. And listen, apparently in that article it states that certain Everton players, certain senior players were not happy with that. They stated that they did give their absolute all, which is utter bollocks for a start, because how any of them can say that they tried their absolute hardest and that they give 110% and that they were battling and that they were fighting in that second half is absolutely beyond me, because none of them were. But apparently some certain senior players, it doesn't name who, so I'm not going to name names because I think that would be unfair, but certain senior players disagreed with what Duncan Ferguson was saying, disagreed with the fact that Ferguson was saying that they didn't try hard enough, and those players said that they did try hard enough, and it was in fact the tactics of the manager that was the reason as to why they didn't win the game. And this just epitomises the issues at Everton Football Club. This has been the problem under Marco Silva, under Ronald Koeman, under Roberto Martinez, under Sam Allardyce, with various different managers, is that players are coming out after performances and saying, well, that's not our fault, that was their fault tactically. Now, fair enough, Marco Silva had some absolutely woeful games in terms of tactically, and the substitutions that he made at times were shocking, and the decisions that he made was absolutely shocking, and we all sat here in the reviews and on Twitter and on Instagram and on social media and said the manager got that really wrong today. That was tactically shocking. But how in God's green earth you as a fan or you as a player can turn around and say that Carlo Ancelotti got that tactically wrong on Sunday is absolutely beyond me. Yes, okay, it's not perfect to have Morgan Schneider and Gylfi Sigurdsson in the same midfield, but when Fabian Delph's obviously coming out and, as seen in the last 24 hours, doesn't really seem to be committed to playing and giving his absolute all for the club. When Tom Davies had a poor performance against Manchester City and didn't really look like he could get involved, they're the only two midfield players to play. And I still stick with this. I said it in the review, said it in the instant match reaction. That team that Carlo Ancelotti put out should have been more than good enough to beat the team that Jurgen Klopp put out. More than good enough. It was full of Premier League international footballers, captains of their international team, players that have played on World Cups, Euros. It was full of international superstars that should have been more than good enough to play the youth development at Liverpool, with a couple of fringe players that get in and out the squad here and there at Liverpool. And it wasn't, and they didn't. And once again, certain players have come out and said that wasn't us, that was the tactics. And I think that was at the point where a lot of fans saw their arse basically. Yesterday, it's been, Twitter's been a mad place today. A lot of fans are starting to see their arse, because now we're realising that whereas when we might have agreed with players under Marco Silva that tactically it was wrong, we might have said, actually, yeah, you know what, the manager hasn't put in a good, the manager hasn't tactically got that right today. His performance, his substitutions were awful, his tactics were awful, his formation was awful. Now we're starting to go, actually, don't dare have a go at Carlo Ancelotti, who's a man that's won double the amount of trophies as Jurgen Klopp has, who's a man that's won 3 Champions Leagues, world's best manager, twice in a row or 3 times in his career. Don't dare come out and say his tactics aren't good enough to beat Liverpool's, whatever you want to call them, reserve team, second team, whatever you want to call them. That is absolute utter bollocks. The reasons to why we didn't get a result on Sunday, the reasons to why we didn't look interested would be because the players on the pitch didn't give 110%. The players on the pitch strolled out there and they couldn't give a shit. And that's why they're sitting in the changing room going, don't blame us, it was tactics. It's not tactics whatsoever. It's the fact that you couldn't be asked turning up and you couldn't be asked putting in your absolute all for this football club and that badge. And you might be going out getting £80,000 a week, £90,000 a week, £100,000 a week, and you might be going home to your supermodel wife or boyfriend with your supermodel, with your supercar and your massive mansion with 73 billion bedrooms and belter bathrooms and a swimming pool. But us fans are having to pay our hard-earned money. A lot of people that went to Anfield on Sunday will have used the money that they've earned from working silly hours over Christmas. There have been a lot of Everton fans in the Anfield Road stand on Sunday that will have worked Christmas Day, New Year's Day, Boxing Day, Christmas Eve till late, and that would have used that money that they've earned working those days to go and watch their football club put in that type of a shamble of a performance. So don't sit there and say it wasn't our fault, it was the tactics' fault, because that is absolute utter shite. It wasn't the tactics whatsoever. I'm not hearing that. I'm really, really not hearing that. And I understand if the players don't want to come out and they don't want to say, don't want to give an apology, because they've done that previously, and Seamus Coleman's come out previously and he gives the usual, we need to do better, and we know we weren't good enough, and fans don't like that either, to be fair, because obviously it's said every single week, it's the same thing said every single week, and I understand that fans don't say that, but that fans don't like that, but just come out and don't say anything at all. Don't say we should be better. Don't just come out and simply say sorry, or go and show that you're sorry, go and prove that you're sorry on Saturday against Brighton, because we absolutely need a massive performance on Saturday against Brighton. Nothing other than a massive performance is good enough. And I really got to me that the players are coming out and saying it wasn't our fault, it was the tactics weren't right, because for me that's just absolute utter dross. It really, really is utter dross, and I'm happy now that Carlo Ancelotti has seen that, and I'm happy that Carlo Ancelotti has seen the players that are willing to not give their all and then blame somebody else. I'm happy that fans are now starting to say, well, hang on, how can it be the tactics' fault when the team he put out should have been more than good enough to win? The substitutions he brought on should have had an impact, and he's a world-class manager. So maybe it's just the fact that you're not giving your all and you're not trying your hardest, and obviously fans are starting to realise that. And like I said, the last 24 hours of since the derby, it's been very negative on social media. Let's have it right, let's not skate around it. It's been very, very negative, and maybe it needed to happen. Maybe this is the turning point, maybe this is the catalyst to going forward in our football club, because there's obviously been a lot of underlying issues with this football club for a long time, and the players not being good enough to wear the shirt is potentially one of them, and I think that was proven on Sunday, and the fans are starting to realise that. Now obviously, like we said, Coleman and Mason Holgate seemingly to be arguing with fans, players coming out in the dressing room and saying it wasn't their fault. Fabian Delph, now we're going to have to talk about Fabian Delph, aren't we, because it'd be absolutely silly to not talk about Fabian Delph. Fabian Delph was messaged by a certain fan after the game, it wasn't actually due to his performance, it was due to something that he may or may not have said to Mason Holgate. I don't want to say it, I don't want to quote it because I don't know the exact quote, but apparently he said something that wasn't very nice towards Mason Holgate and Mason Holgate's performance, or maybe professionalism on Sunday. Now, regardless of what you think of this situation, regardless of whether you think fans should directly message players, for me, I personally, and this is open to discussion, and this is another thing, this as well as the fans that went down to Finch Farm, is two things that I've seen on Twitter that literally are 50-50 split between fans as to whether you should do it or whether you shouldn't do it. Personally, I think if you've paid your hard-earned money, if you've took time out of your day, you more than have a right to voice your opinion. That's why I do this channel. That's why Toffee TV do the channel. That's why Grand Old Team, Toffee Blues, Falcon Blues do their channels. That's why, anybody has a Twitter account or social media account of some form, you are more than entitled to jump on and voice your opinions, as I did on Sunday. The instant match reaction, the game review, as I did, I voiced my opinion. Now, if you're messaging a player, if you're DMing a player saying that performance wasn't good enough, sort your head out, you need to be putting in better performances, then for me, I don't necessarily have the biggest issue with that, because maybe players need that little bit of a slap in the face. Maybe players need that little bit of realism that there is people that really, really rely on their performances, and if they're not good enough, they need telling. I don't agree with, and I'm not saying that this fan does so, because I don't think he does, the one that I'm referring to. I don't agree with fans giving players abuse, personal abuse, or some of the things that have been rumoured to have been said on WhatsApp when the fans met up with Marcel is that they were going to smash the players' cars, and I don't agree with that whatsoever. I don't think it needs to go personal. The last thing we need is players being scared to turn up at Finch Farm, players being scared to turn up at Goodison Park because of what the fans are going to say. Now, it's okay to turn around and go, that performance wasn't good enough, sort yourself out and come back better next week. We're not putting up with that. That's perfectly fine. But I think, threatening players' families and threatening certain players and saying you're going to smash car, whether that was what was said or not, again, it's all rumoured. I don't agree with it, to be perfectly honest with you. But anyway, this lad, he has a little bit of a go, Fabian Delph, for what he potentially said to Mason Holgate, and as well as the fact that his overall performance of the team on Sunday wasn't good enough. Delph replies saying, like you could have done better, or oh, could you have done better? And this fan actually, for me, puts in a really, really good response. He says, listen, I'm not paid £80,000 a week to play for Everton. I'd pay to play for Everton, and if I was paid £80,000 a week, I'd at least give me all, I'd at least try my hardest. So for the record, I would do better. And Delph responds with a message that I think was very unnecessary. It was unnecessary for him to get involved in the conversation anyway. He's a professional, he's an experienced player. He should know better as to get in Twitter arguments or Instagram arguments, whatever, with fans, especially given the heatedness and the emotion that the fans were feeling after that defeat. And Delph responds by saying, delusional little boy. Now, for me, it's quite, I don't know this lad, but it's quite clear that he's not a little boy. He appears to be an adult, or at least an older teenager. And my biggest issue with that is I just think that comment is so patronising. It's just unnecessary, isn't it? You don't have to say that. Fabian Delph could have said, right, okay, we'll take that on board. I apologise about how you feel. I apologise about the performance. We'll take that on board and we'll look to do better in the future. But saying delusional little boy because a fan has come out and said that they'd give 110% if they had that shirt on playing for the club, I just think doesn't sit well whatsoever. And you can see it doesn't sit well because if you go on Twitter now and type in Fabian Delph's name, or you look at what people are saying about Fabian Delph, they're not, a lot of Everton fans don't want to see him play for Everton again. A lot of Everton fans want to see him sold. It's not a good response. Obviously, it's not a good response because if you're turning around to a fan and saying you're a delusional little boy for saying that he would play better than what that certain player did the other week, just come out and say, well, okay, I appreciate the feedback and I'll pass it on and I apologise, the performance wasn't good enough. Be professional, grow up, Delph. Don't start throwing out delusional little boy shouts as if this lad hasn't got a right to voice that he's not happy and hasn't got a right to voice that. You get paid more money than what a lot of people will be paid in their lifetime a week to play for this football club. The bare minimum you should be doing is putting in a performance, putting in a little bit of effort, throwing in a tackle, getting yourself about. And I actually don't think Fabian Delph was the worst player on the pitch on Sunday, and I don't think he was necessarily the one that I think at full time a lot of Everton fans were having a go at or disagreeing with. But that comment for me is just, it's so inappropriate and it's so unnecessary and it is patronising. I really don't like the delusional little boy. It's almost like, well, I'm on a pedestal, I'm a professional footballer, I can do what I want, you wouldn't do as good, which I think is an absolute disgrace. And again, it's added to the article about players blaming Ancelotti's tactics. It's added to Mason Holgate and Seamus Coleman arguing with fans. It's added to this fallout from the Merseyside derby that is just showing the issues at our football club that really need to be resolved by Carlo Ancelotti. Now, I'm not happy, but at least it's happened relatively early into Carlo Ancelotti's reign as Everton manager, because it now means he can, he can nail it down, and he's had experience before, Carlo Ancelotti, in dealing with football clubs that maybe have got issues and a little bit of disarray. I don't know if anybody's read this book. I'll get into the live comments in just a second, by the way. I do apologise, I know I'm ranting. If you're enjoying the stream, by the way, please do hit that like button, get the stream shared to all of your social medias as well. If you're new to the channel, please do subscribe, it only takes a second. But I'm aware that Carlo Ancelotti's got a book out. I haven't actually read it myself. It's definitely a read that I'm looking to do. But apparently he discusses, and I'm not going to lie, I got this from Toffee TV. I was watching a bit of the final word yesterday, and Ped and Baz and John were discussing it. But there's a part in the book where he discusses integrating players into a squad, and he talks about certain cliques in certain football clubs, and he said that when him and Zlatan arrived at PSG, they hadn't won a trophy in however many years, they hadn't won a league, however many years, and he found out that players didn't have restaurants to go to, they didn't know what they were eating, there was no organisation really, and that strikes me as the massive issue at Everton Football Club at the minute, is from the absolute top to the bottom, from the CEO, from the board members, to the players on the pitch, to the people that, I don't know, roll the shirts, I don't know. There seems to be a lack of organisation throughout the entire football club, and that's why I want to pick this point up. Carlo Ancelotti talks about when he entered PSG and other clubs as well, he had to integrate the players together, and he speaks about why it's so bad to have certain cliques of players in the dressing room, and we absolutely see that at Everton. I was listening to the lads talking about the chapter, and I was like, this is Everton through and through. We have cliques in this dressing room, and it's been the same for years and years and years. If you look at Everton players' social media, or if even you look at the videos that Everton put out on their social media, their YouTube channel, it's not hidden. There's cliques in the dressing room. There's certain groups of players that stay with each other and don't integrate with other players, and that is just a big red flag in any team sport or in football, because it means that when you're on the pitch and you've got to play next to players that might not necessarily be in your clique, then you're not going to be able to do it. And we've seen it at Everton, like I said, an example, Alex Iwobi, Tom Davis, Mason Holgate, Dominic Calvert-Lewin are in sort of one clique. Then you have the French-speaking players, Luca Dean, Umar Niasse, Garner Gay when he was here, Morgan Schneiderlin, who were in their clique. Then you've got the likes of Bernard, Richarlison, Yerry Mina, who were in their clique. And there's different types of groups. You don't ever really see Jordan Pickford hanging out with Bernard, or Jordan Pickford hanging out with Richarlison, or Dominic Calvert-Lewin hanging out with, Morgan Schneiderlin, for example. There doesn't seem to be that full level of integration into the squad. It seems to be little pockets and little groups of people and players integrating with each other. It's almost like you put 24 players in a room and 3 of them huddle together and 4 of them huddle together and a few more huddle together. And in the end, you've got a group of 3 players that don't want to speak to the other group of 3 players that are standing in the right-hand corner. They just want to sit there and talk, amongst themselves. And that, for me, in terms of team building and bonding and stuff, is just an absolute no-no. And I'm really, really happy that Carlo Ancelotti's had experience in dealing with that, and he knows how to deal with that. If anybody's interested, what he says in the book is that he made sure that at dinner and in training and in certain situations, the players that he found out were in cliques were separated, and that players were moved, and that they weren't allowed to sit in the same seats every day and sit next to the same people. They had to integrate with other players. They had to sort of talk. And I'm not saying that you've got Iwobi and Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Mason Holgate who never ever have a conversation with Bernard or Richarlison, or don't like Bernard or Richarlison. I'm not saying that whatsoever. What I'm saying is that there needs to be that togetherness. There needs to be that team spirit. There needs to be that morality between the team. And yes, they might talk, and yes, they might play well on the pitch at times, and yes, they might like each other or mightn't have anything against each other. One thing is for certain is they're not integrating correctly, and that's something that Carlo Ancelotti has definitely got to look at. Like I said, it's really, really interesting. Obviously, the fallout from the Merseyside derby. I didn't think it would be quite this big, to be honest with you. We've had Merseyside derbies in the past where we've lost embarrassingly by 4-0, 1-0 last season. But this one, I think, has started to open the eyes of a lot of Evertonians and say, well, we can't really blame the manager, because we've got one of the best managers in world football. We've just sacked the previous manager for not being tactically, astute enough, or being tactically good enough to take us forward. We've now got a manager that we know is proven to be tactically good enough to take teams forward and to bring teams into the position that we apparently want to be in. The players coming out and saying it's the tactics that are the issue is clearly bullshit. And now players are obviously starting to, fans are starting to realise that and call players out. Obviously, today or yesterday, I think it was, on Monday, we had the situation at Finch Farm. Before we talk about that, I want to get into the live comments so I can make sure I'm getting all of your opinions as possible. Joel says, prediction for Brighton, Cam. I'm actually going to go with a 2-1 win to Everton. Lennon says, yes, Cam, have you heard the drama that took place at Finch Farm? Yeah, we're going to talk about it in a second. Lavid says, I thought it was good for brands to face fans. Yeah, definitely we'll talk about that. CJ says, Marcel was sacked because of the players they'd gotten before the manager goes. Exactly, and one thing I want to point out is that, really, really interesting, I actually missed this, but apparently, well, not apparently, Gylfi Sigurdsson made an interview, or given interviews to say, shortly after Carlo Ancelotti was appointed Everton manager. And in that interview, he said one quote, which he might have just said, or he mightn't have meant to say it how he said it, but he said that it's the player's job to ensure Carlo Ancelotti keeps his job. Now, for me, that absolutely screams out that the players believe that they've got more power at this football club than they should believe they have, and that they should have. If players are coming out and saying it's up to us if a manager keeps the job, no, that is completely wrong. That shouldn't be relayed to fans, and that shouldn't be believed by anybody. It should be the manager, it should be the players' job to make sure that they keep their own jobs. It's the manager that decides whether certain players are good enough for this football club and whether certain players should be moved on. Carlo Ancelotti, according to the Daily Express, has come out and said that he's willing to sell Gylfi Sigurdsson this month, and that Gylfi Sigurdsson will be put up for sale. Now, again, that is what it is at the minute. It is just paper talk, but whether you choose to believe in that, one thing is for definite, is that the players do not control the fate of a manager, or at least shouldn't control the fate of a manager. But I've got absolutely no sort of what's the word I'm looking for? I've got no, I I can't find the difficult. Anyway, I believe that the players did console the fate of the manager. I really, I've got no doubt is the word I'm looking for. I've got no doubt that has been the case previously at Everton Football Club for Marco Silva, for Ronald Koeman, for Roberto Martinez. I think that for too long at this football club, we have allowed players to decide the fate of a manager. It's not going to happen with Carlo Ancelotti. There's absolutely no way we're going to allow Gylfi Sigurdsson, Morgan Schneiderlin, Theo Walcott to allow the fate of arguably the best and most successful manager we've ever had at our football club. It's up to the manager to decide the fate of those players, and that's what needs to be laid down and set out in cement now, to let Gylfi Sigurdsson know that, you know, his time might well be done at Everton. But if it's not done at Everton, and if Carlo Ancelotti's willing to give him another shot, then he needs to know full well that it's up to Carlo Ancelotti whether he stays at Everton, not up to him, and definitely not up to those players whether the manager stays at Everton Football Club. PG Danny says, you don't understand how much stick us Everton fans are getting because of the crap players. Exactly. Lennon says, the fans have said if changes then we'll go back to Finch Farm and smash the players' corner, which is out of order no matter how bad the performance. I do agree with that one. Eugene says you think Everton will be Brighton. I do. Lennon says Eugene I think 2-0 Everton. 1878 SD says nothing them lads have said or done is out of order, whether it's lads at Finch Farm or lad arguing with Delph. I don't disagree at this point. If the lads went up and started smashing cars up at Finch Farm, or Fabian Delph, or, you know, Instagram message was released where Delph had been told that, you know, bad things were going to happen to his family or his close family, I disagree with that. But, you know, nothing at the minute. I think fans going to Finch Farm and voicing their opinion, and obviously the big long message on WhatsApp that's been floating about that says that the fans said they're going to smash the car up and they're going to get 200 down. You know, that could very, very well be a load of bollocks. Fans could have turned up and said, listen, these performances aren't good enough. I want to talk to the players because I believe the players are only here for a payday. Marcel Brand's spoken to them and they said, yeah, you know what, well, you know, thanks for the discussion, we'll leave now. And all of that added stuff could have just been added for effect. 1878 says, yeah, Brand's done well. We're going to talk about Marcel Brands in just a second because I think it's, you know, credit where credit's due, and I do want to credit Marcel Brands. Eugene says we need to get rid of the deadwood at Everton. We do. Wayne says Delph needs to go anyways. What uses an injury-prone midfielder? Coleman needs to be sold. Now that 60 grand is looking like we got munked off. I don't think it is, but, you know, I agree. He'd probably come to his end of his time at Everton. Wayne says, calm lad, how are we doing? Wayne, hope doing well. Toffee Talk says, these players need to put a performance in for us on Saturday. Who do they think they are, not coming over to the supporters on Sunday and apologising for that dog shit performance? Exactly. Another big issue. Players, you know, I think it was only Jabril Sidibe, maybe a couple of other players that went over to the Everton fans and clapped them and thanked them for their support. A lot of fans just went straight down the tunnel and didn't look interested. Wayne says, which Gedson, Ferguson would headbutt Hadlin. We don't want abuse. We don't want that type of abuse. Hernandez says, just hope that there is a big turnaround for Brighton. First time at Goodison this weekend, and it seems like there is big turmoil. Brands confrontation seems bizarre. Hope Sport in Lisbon not happening. Yeah, I agree, but, you know, it's good that Brands has had that conversation with fans. Porcupine Smackstuff says said Mobile, I would absolutely take him. Whether he come to Everton, I doubt, but I would absolutely take him. 1870 is finished with Delph and his Hollywood passes and his attitude. Fair enough, and that's understandable, especially after what's happened over the last 24 to 48 hours. Eugene says, what is your Everton start lineup against Brighton? We'll discuss that in Friday's live stream, which will be the live game preview. Where he says, best thing about the loss to Liverpool kids was your reaction vid, cheered me right up, all true and piss funny. I wish I could have made the reaction positive and happy and saying, oh my god, we've beat Liverpool for the first time in however long, but it's never the case with Everton, is it? Lennon says, but thank you very much for your support and nice words. Lennon says, against Brighton, I will pick Baines, Pickford, Holgate, Mina, Sidibe, Davis, Sigurdsson, Richarlison, Bernard, Keane and DCL. Only use Sigurdsson because of a weakness in midfield. Fair enough. I'd probably not put Sigurdsson in there personally, but fair enough. Bear with me just a second. Toby Talk says the majority of these players are stealing a living at our club. Big shitbags, and Ted Wood need effing off as soon as possible. Hard to disagree. Where are we? Wormy says, who we playing next game? Schneiderlin and Sigurdsson can't play together because of the Lynch mob, and Delph's too busy arguing on Twitter. Good point. Wayne says, Delph and I will be with crap signings. Brandon should have been sacked. Captured talent. Fair point. I understand. I do understand where you're coming from. Jake says, what would you think of the rumour of Gylfi being listed for 15-20 million? Cam, the possibility of bringing in Gedson Fernandes in? Would you like to see you would like to see at Everton come February? I'd like to see Gedson Fernandes, and I would take between 15 and 20 million for Gylfi Sigurdsson, if I'm being honest with you. In terms of players I'd like to see at Everton come January, I'd love to see Immobile as soon as he's being linked, Insigne as soon as he's being linked. I'd absolutely love to see Timo Werner, but it's never going to happen. Wayne says Getson is going with Moyes, wants to be in London with his Ma. Probably like every other player. Jake says shame that he looks a real talent. He does. Toffee Talk says these modern day players need to understand there's a privilege to honour to put the blue shirt on, but they don't. That's why they need coaches like Big Dunk screaming at them to wake them up. 100% spot on. Bear with me. Goodsoul says, hey Cam, I've had some shit weeks at work as an Everton fan, but this week has been rough, real rough. Time to look at the positives like Ancelotti in the stadium plans. I think, it's the same for us all, mate. We've just got to get through it. Kazuka says, FF Gate, Finch Farm Gate is a good thing. It's a message to the players and they needed it. Yeah, we'll go back into talking into the rest of the live comments in just a second. Let's go into talking about the Finch Farm situation then, because, again, it happened and it would be quite silly of us to dismiss it. So if you don't know what I'm talking about or what we're referring to, a group of fans, I believe it to be about 7, maybe between 7 and 10. Some reports are saying 10, some reports are saying 7. But a group of fans decided to visit Finch Farm on Monday after the dreadful, embarrassing, sickening, horrible performance on Sunday against Liverpool, and voiced their opinions about the players. They originally wanted to get the players to come out, or at least one of the players to come out, and basically give an explanation as to why they were so poor. That didn't happen. Security told them that wasn't going to happen. They then said that they were basically going to stay until they had an answer or a conversation from somebody, and that possibly more could come. And then Marcel Brands decided to take it out of his own will to come out and talk to the fans. Now, again, like I said earlier on, I just want to say a big props to Marcel Brands for doing this. The communication between fans and the football club is utterly dreadful. So I can't stress how important it is that Marcel Brands come out and spoke to the fans. It would have been so easy for Brands to have sat back in his chair, and the rest of the coaching staff to have sat back in the chair, and the players to have sat back in the chair and gone, nobody is speaking to the fans, we're not moving, and we'll just sit here until the fans get bored and go home, and then they'll go home and there'll be no communication. So big props to Marcel Brands for actually going and facing the music. He didn't know what there was to be. Yes, he went with security, of course he went with security. He's not going to go out there on his own into a car park with 7 or 10 angry Evertonians after the performance. But props to him for going out and hearing the Everton fans' grievances and actually being that level and that line of communication. It shouldn't be our director of football that is having that line of communication between the fans and the football club, the players and the board. There should be a direct communicator. There should be a role in place for fans to be able to go to a certain somebody, whether it be Alan Myers, who's done it previously, or somebody else, and voice their opinions about certain issues with the football club, and that somebody should then be allowed to go and relay those opinions and relay those thoughts and those grievances to the board and to the players and to the management staff. It shouldn't take the director of football to come out and have a discussion with fans in the car park at the training facility, because there's nobody else that's willing to talk to them. But like I said, props to Marcel Brands for going out and talking to those fans. He listened to the fans. He even agreed with the fans on a lot of points. I believe the main grievance was that fans believed that the players were only there for the payday. They didn't care about Everton Football Club. They weren't in it to try their hardest. They weren't in it to give their all. They were just there to get paid and leave, which is very understandable considering the performance on Sunday. And a lot of the performances over the years. Apparently the meeting went on for around sort of 20 minutes, and Marcel Brands assured the fans that he would relay this message back to the board and back to the players as well, and Carlo Ancelotti. So obviously really important that conversation happened, and a big props to Marcel Brands for going out and discussing that with the fans, whether that 20-minute conversation consisted of what some of the stuff we've read on social media about fans telling Marcel Brands that they're going to rip players' cars to bits and all of that. I don't know. Personally, I don't believe it. But I do believe that, the fans said, listen, these performances aren't good enough. We want to talk to players. Apparently, according to Paul Joyce, who does the article, who's a very reliable source, Marcel Brands said that wasn't possible, as did the security. But then he had the conversation himself with the fans himself, and said that he assures the fans that that message is going to be relayed, and that's really important. And it's really important that Marcel Brands now goes back to the board and says, listen, lads and ladies, I've just sat in the car park for 20 minutes with 7 angry Evertonians who've turned up on a normal day when I've been trying to do my work. I'm trying to scout players left, right and centre here, and I'm having to go and stand in the car park and talk to fans. There needs to be a level of communication. There needs to be a line of communication. Somebody needs to be in place that can have those conversations so I can crack on with trying to bring the best players in for this football club and sell the deadwood that fans are obviously very, very, very annoyed with. But like I said, credit to Marcel Brands for having that conversation. I hope he's relayed that to the players. I hope he's relayed that to the board and the management staff, as that fans aren't happy with that performance, and especially that performance on Sunday. The performances, and especially that performance on Sunday, sorry. Again, we need to be careful. And I know a lot of these players don't deserve to wear an Everton shirt, and I know a lot of these players need to leave the football club and have come to their time, the end of their time as an Everton player now. But obviously it's not feasible to just sell the entire squad, especially in a January transfer window. We're not likely to see big business happen until the summer. Yes, the likes of Morgan Schneiderlin, Gylfi Sigurdsson might leave this transfer window, but we're not likely to see the majority of the deadwood leave until at least the summer, because it's very, very hard to bring in players in January. It's very, very hard to replace players in January. So we need to be, with rumours flying around that fans are going to smash cars up and this, that, the other, we need to be, we need to be careful that, it's not going to help. Players aren't going to want to turn up and play at Goodison Park. They're not going to want to turn up and saying if they're feared that fans are going to be there threatening their livelihoods effectively. But what the players do need to know is that fans are willing to turn up at the training ground and say, listen, this isn't good enough, this is absolutely dreadful, and it needs sorting out now, because we're not putting up with that type of performance. Like I said, credit to Marcel Brands and credit to the fans for going down and having that conversation as well. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have done, in the same way as I'm not saying that the fans shouldn't have messaged Fabian Delph. You pay your hard-earned money to watch this football club. If you're not happy with the performances of players that are paid 6 or 7 figures a year to go out there and perform, then you should 100% be able to air your grievances. I don't think there's any need for personal threats or threats towards family, but there's definitely needs to say you're not good enough either. Put in a better performance or get to fuck, basically, and I don't think that's personal. But yeah, that was the situation regarding Finch Farm, of course. It's a big news article. It's come out. Paul Joyce has published it for the time, so we know it's reliable. We know it happened. Same reason as to why the article about players blaming the tactics on Sunday, that was published by The Athletic, who are also a very reliable source. So we pretty much know that happened as well. But overall, a bad few days for Everton Football Club. But you could say it's a bad few days for Everton Football Club, or you could say it's a defining few days for the football club. You could say it's a couple of days that may well be the catalyst for our success going forward, because it's woken up a lot of the fan base as to the issues at this football club, and it'll have woken up the new manager who's come in, who would have understood the size of the job, and I don't think he's out of his depth. He would have understood the situation that's going on here. But it's very, very easy for us as fans to go, okay, Carlo Ancelotti's coming in, and he knows that the players on the pitch aren't good enough and the performances on the pitch need to be better. But it's not just that, it's the organisation of the entire football club. Like Carlo Ancelotti talks about in his book, it's the players at dinner time sitting next to each other, the same type of player, the same group of players constantly, not having conversations with other groups of players, not getting involved with other groups of players. It's the organisation at the higher end of the football club, the fact that there is nobody to communicate with the fans, the fact that there's nobody that fans can go to and say, listen, I'm not happy with this, and that person can then relay that back to the club and there can be some sort of agreement. That level of that organisation needs to be addressed by the club, and now it needs to be addressed by Carlo Ancelotti. For me, obviously, he can address the issues on the football pitch, the issues tactically. He can decide that, listen, if certain players are coming out and saying it's the tactics that are the issue, he can go, nah, you can get to fuck, lad, see you later, you're gone in the transfer window. But now, for me, Carlo Ancelotti also needs to go to the board and say, listen, there's this as well that I shouldn't really be managing, but that is not working and that needs changing as soon as possible. And for me, one of those situations is the situation that happened at Finch Farm with Marcel Brands going out. But fair play to Marcel Brands for going out and for hearing the grievances of the fans, and for actually understanding and saying that he will relay that, and not just going yeah. Basically, we look to be better and we should be putting better performances in, and we're sorry, see you later. And then not saying it. And good on Marcel Brands for saying, yeah, I'll let them know. Whether he does or not, we don't know, obviously, until there's change, but good on Marcel Brands for saying, yeah, I'm going to let them know that wasn't good enough. And yeah, like I said, it hasn't been a great week for Everton, because you don't like to see the negativity, you don't like to see players arguing with fans, you don't like to see players putting in performances like they did on Sunday, but maybe it needed to happen. Maybe there needed to be that massive wake-up call for fans to say, hang on, maybe these players just aren't good enough. And now the massive wake-up call for Carlo Ancelotti to come in and go, yeah, these players aren't good enough, so X, Y and Z are going to leave the football club, and we're going to bring in players that are better, that can replace them, that can actually do a job, and that at the very, very least are going to try their absolute hardest. Be really, really interesting to see what the team looks like. Of course, on Saturday, we will have our live game preview on Friday night, 5:30 p.m. So don't forget to join us for that one. We'll be having my predicted start 11 there. And we'll be talking about the game as well, and how I think Carlo Ancelotti should approach the game. But like I said, overall, quite a bad week for Everton Football Club. And like the title of the stream reads, I think players need to start taking responsibility for their own performances, because they simply cannot come out after Sunday and blame anybody else but themselves, because it just wasn't good enough whatsoever. And, you know, that's now being highlighted by the majority of fans now, who are turning up at the training ground, who are taking it into their own sort of... into their own hands, is to message players personally and to inform players that they're not happy. And maybe if there was a communicator, maybe if there was somebody at the football club that had that communication between fans and the club, that maybe fans wouldn't feel the need to turn up at the training ground or message players personally and let them know. Maybe they could just rant at that person, and that person could go back and relay that to the club, like there was when Alan Myers obviously was employed. But, you know, obviously... we don't know. Again, it's all part of the organisation of the football club, which for me, as a company, as a business, is just ran so poorly. And it's not just, you know, businesses fail from the top. It's not just from the bottom. Businesses fail from the top. And football is a business, and Everton is a business. And what we're seeing on the football pitch is absolutely no surprise, and is a direct correlation of what's going on in the boardroom and what's going on at the top of the football club. And it needs to be addressed quickly, because otherwise we're in an absolute shit state, and we're in shit state going forward. It needs to be addressed, because like I said, businesses don't fail from the bottom, they fail from the top, and them type of performances are just symbolic of what's going on in the boardroom and what's going on at the higher ends of the football club. And it needs to change massively, and let's hope Carlo Ancelotti's the man to come in, the man with the pedigree, the man with the bollocks to come in and say, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, so you're leaving on a player's point of view, and this needs to change, this needs to change, this needs to change from a higher point of view as well. Because I think it'd take a man like Carlo Ancelotti to do that. But just before I end this team, like I said, I think it's really, really important that the players, regardless of who plays, has our full support. Carlo Ancelotti has our full support on Saturday, and we go out and we get 3 points in the Premier League, because we're still not safe in the Premier League. We still need to go out and get as many points on the board as possible, and that starts on Saturday. If you have enjoyed this team, please do hit that like button. It only takes a second. Nearly 8 of you watching. If you're new to the channel, please do subscribe as well. I'm going to go through the rest of the live comments now before we end the stream. Jake says, none of them seem to have a winning mentality. They just don't seem arsed. If they lose or win, they shouldn't want anything more than putting it in there all to get the win. End of. I agree, spot on. And I think, in terms of players coming in and out, I think if we are going to replace the entire span of the team, which I personally think needs to happen, I think when you're bringing in the likes of a centre-back, a centre-forward, a centre midfielder, a goalkeeper, I think those players need to be born leaders. It's not just bringing in players to fill that position, not just bringing in young players with up-and-coming ability and promise to fill them positions, but we need players that are born leaders. We need leaders all over the pitch in football. That's what you need. You don't just need one leader in a captain, which I don't think we've got anyway. You need leaders all over the pitch, and for me, that's what Everton need to look to do when they were bringing in players to replace certain players that probably, hopefully, well, not hopefully, I don't want to say hopefully, it sounds bad, but but let's say hopefully, yeah, don't have a future at the football club. Clip says, if any fans threaten vandalism, if they didn't get their way, it's pathetic. It's just a good conversation with Brand, then great. I support letting the club know how we feel. 100% spot on. William says, Cam talks so much into that, lad. You're going to run out of words. Thank you. Yeah, I'm getting in the live comments now. Clip says, don't worry, Cam, those players are gone anyway. Good Soul says, I've missed it. Good Soul says, we have no leaders and no winners amongst the players. Bear with me just 2 seconds. We have no leaders and no winners amongst the players. No one looks pissed off when they lose. Take a look at the likes of Ronaldo when he loses. Exactly, spot on. Faz says, amazing how the players stand their ground when confronted, but hard. Exactly, 100%. On the pitch, I assume that's meant to say. Wayne says, sorry mate, I've had no sleep, we'll be bright in about time. Mina scored a header, I hope so. Jared says, what do you make of Delph and Brands with the fans? Just mentioned it. Danny says, what does Gylfi move like the 61? Why does Gylfi move like the 61? I don't know, mate. I wish I knew. Everton TV says, hi, mate. How are you? I'm not too bad, mate. I hope you're doing well. Figure says, your sensible Everton signings would be... Sensible Everton signings. I like Decore from Watford. I don't know, to be honest. It's tough, innit? It is really, really tough. It's tough. again, is Immobile, is Insigne a sensible signing? I don't know. Matthew says, would you have Zaha and Cantwell from Palace and Norwich? I just don't think Cantwell would fit into this team at the minute. I really, really don't. Because we've not got no structure. We've got no organisation on the pitch. And for a player like that to succeed, they need all of that structure and organisation in place, as well as the leaders in place. Gord says, the players need to show that they can pick themselves up after that shit show last Sunday and put a shift in on Saturday. Spot on at 100%. Wallpaper Flembot says, think we need Holgate in the midfield, even though with play, have to play key in his legs and combativeness are needed further up the pitch. Spot on. And I'll give you a little bit of a sneak preview to me predicted starting 11 on Friday. Holgate is in the centre of the midfield. Kayla says, hi Cam, hi Kayla, we're doing well. Doswick says, honestly, based on what you're saying, Cam, the fans were completely right and courageous to address the horrendous performance from Saturday. I agree. Greg AFCV says, how you know your name's been rubbing your noses in it? Not nice, not nice. Exactly. And they have for him. He says, summer is a problem with the Euros. It is, but we need to take that into consideration. Eugene says, Everton will be Brighton 4-0. I hope so. Doswick says, it makes no sense smashing up players' cars. They can buy another one with a weekly wage. Exactly, that's a good point. Wayne says, can't see any point in leaving Tossen. Has to be a permanent. Everyone knows. Leaving Tossen on loan and Tossen, sorry, has to be a permanent. Everyone knows he cannot do a lot. Yeah, apparently there's a rumour that Cenk Tosun is very, very close to joining Crystal Palace on loan. We'll have more of an update on that in the next couple of days, but that looks like it may happen. Greg says, Eugene Zeman. Goodsall says, obviously there's a performance in those players. The Chelsea game proves that. This is what's so frustrating. Why couldn't they do it against Liverpool, regardless of whether they win or lose? Mentality, mate. Mentality is absolutely dreadful. Wayne says, Schneiderlin to West Ham, Sigurdsson to Villa, Tossen Palace, and Walcott to Southampton, and Nias to Accrington Stanley. James says, good chat, lad. Thank you very much. Goodsall says, I think the fact that they have no consistency shows that they are not at the level we need. Spot on. Jared says, will a result break us or spare us on? We'll have to wait and see. Wayne says, hit like, yeah, if you could hit the like button, it'd mean a massive amount to me. Wayne says, respect my Everton brother, respect. Wayne says, Cam should do one of these chats where he interacts more with the comments, just saying more chats. Maybe I'll do a little bit of a Q&A. I'd like to think I integrate and interact a lot with the comments. I try and read every single comment out, but maybe. James says, need to rally the team. Now, how long? Tough road till the end of the season. Need points on the board. Spot on. Wayne says, are you stalking Cam? Wormy says, no, I'd need to know where he lives. Wayne says, haha. Wormy says, support the channel. Let's go for the fans that have a place to vent. It is. Wayne says, best Everton fan channel on YouTube. Thank you very much. Really, really do appreciate that. Richard Jones says, love the channel. Cam, Everton showed the amount of passion on the pitch that you show to be top of the league. Keep up the good work. But thank you very, very much, Richard. I really, really do appreciate that. So, yeah, before I finish, I just want to remind everybody again, me and my girlfriend will be doing the Everton Goodison Park sleep out. I've left the links to both of our Just Given pages in the description below. If you could spare any amount of money, whether it be a small amount, a large amount, however much is really, really appreciated. If you don't know what the sleep out is, it's to raise funds for Everton in the community for the the project to try and combat young people between 18 and 23, ages of 18 and 23, who are at the risk of homelessness, helping them and trying to give them obviously a place to live and a place to sleep and a place to eat. We'll be spending the night at Goodison Park. Me and my girlfriend will be doing vlogs, we'll be doing videos, and we'll be absolutely freezing cold, and I dare say very, very uncomfortable, but it is all for a very, very good cause, and it's one night in our lives, whereas some people have to do that every single night. Joel says, when is it? It is on the 6th of March this year. If you want to sign up yourself, then feel free. If you go to Everton in the Community's Twitter or Everton in the Community's website, you can sign up yourself and you can raise money for it. But like I said, our links are in the description below. So if you go down, if you could donate any amount, whether it be a penny or a pound, I'd really, really appreciate it. Either link down below. It would mean an absolute massive amount to me and Jess, of course. Big thanks to everybody for watching. Please do hit that like button if you have enjoyed today. Like I said, subscribe to the channel if you're new as well. It only takes a second. I'll be back on Friday for the live game preview to the Brighton game. May even have a guest on the show on Friday as well, hopefully, if all goes well. But don't forget to join us at 5:30 for that live stream. Big thanks for watching. Please leave your thoughts in the comment section down below if you're watching as a YouTube video, if you joined us in the live comments. Big thanks once again for joining us. Please leave a like if you have enjoyed, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll see you soon on the Mighty Blues.